All right, come over. Let's talk about the crew thing. We're back with our Patreon extra. And we've got Heidi here officially on the mic. Because, Heidi, you're the one that kind of brought this up about the crew. And I want you to lean in a little bit more so you're like a
lean
hand.
in.
Yeah, there you go. That's perfect.
Do not be afraid of the
Get
microphone.
close like how you guys are going to sleep tonight.
It's only weird if you make it weird.
You were saying that you thought it was important to share about the crew. What was that perspective that was making you?
So more and more people are getting away from the normal standard racing and going more towards these ultras, something bigger, multi-day, crew-worthy events. And I think that what I've seen is that a lot of people aren't fully aware of what it takes to be a crew member, and athletes who haven't been a crew member aren't fully aware of what it takes in your crew to get you to the finish.
And you've crewed twice now for Mary because you were in Australia.
Yeah.
And then Mary, you had the whole reason why I don't know if it's the whole reason, but you crewed at Ultraman.
I did, yeah.
And you've had the opportunity to crew at Badwater. So you've got experience as crew, and you have experience as crew and having crew yourself, Heidi.
Yeah.
So what is it that you think are the missing pieces that people aren't really... They're overlooking because they don't even know like that this is such
or taking
a key
for
piece.
granted.
Yeah.
You know?
I
Yeah.
think people take for granted, is that the...
It was just really formal how you say that. I think what people take for granted.
What I feel. Sorry.
Excellent job with your phonics.
So awkward. I think what people take for granted. I can't even say it now. What people don't understand.
I love it.
Is that you see your spouse every day. You see your friends a couple times a week. You see your siblings anything from every day to once a year. And you have this relationship with them. So you think, oh, well, this will work great because they understand what I'm doing, right? Because they're my spouse, or they're my brother or sister, or they're my friend, or they're my best friend.
So
or
they
they're my
know what I
coworker.
need. They know who I am.
Yeah.
And really, they
don't.
They don't know shit.
Absolutely. So case in point, my husband, love him to death, cannot crew for me because he can't see me in pain. My coworkers coming to Ironman, which doesn't even require crew, couldn't stop talking about it for months because they're like, I had no idea that's what you did. They didn't know, but they knew what I did. They knew what it takes to do an Ironman. They saw the training, but
They don't know what it
they
looks like.
couldn't understand it because they'd never seen it. And I think a lot of people, especially if it's your first time being an athlete who needs a crew and you haven't crewed, you probably don't understand. You don't know what you need yet. So how are you going to be able to express to your crew what you need? Does that...
Yeah.
Whereas
So-
if you have a seasoned crew, they're going to be able to help you figure out what you need. Or if you have crewed, you're going to say, oh my gosh, yeah, let me tell you the stuff that's about to go down that, or potentially could go down that you have nobody would ever think of.
So you need at least one, ideally you want the athlete and the crew to have crew experience.
Somebody at least
Even
on it, yeah.
even if it's just one person on that crew that can be the lead crew. But I think the athlete being in a crew situation seems pretty critical too.
Yeah.
So you can really get behind the scenes and you can,
Yeah.
and as a crew member at a race, you're also able to take in what's happening with the other athletes and the other crews and the possible things that are coming up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of it is just my personality. Like when I'm interested in something, it's automatically a desire to know everything I can about it. And so I've known I think I first heard about Ultraman in, maybe around 2010 or so. And so that was on my radar. And when my teammate had a last minute cancellation in 2014 and was, posted on our team page, he was like, hey, is anybody up to crew and specifically pace on the run at Ultraman Canada? I was like, pick me. pick me because I had experience crewing for 100-milers, trail races for a friend, and I knew that this was something I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And for me, like, I wanted to see beforehand what this all looked like.
Yeah, so it's like there's a lot of years and a lot of research that go into this perfect execution. It's not just like your 6-month training block leading.
No.
Like, this has been a decade, almost a decade in the making.
Yeah.
And so it's, I always say, like, it's the patience attains the goal, and allowing those opportunities to come to you and seeing them as opportunities and knowing that they're a prep for the future, and doing the work within those to get the information that you need. So this is experience. And experience is way more than what you can get from reading about what it takes to be a crew member. Like, your experience creates your perspective, which creates your understanding, like, in what you're going to need, and being able to anticipate things that maybe you wouldn't if you hadn't had that experience.
Yeah.
I think that's more key than not, is understanding when to offer up the information that you have.
Yes.
And when to hold back.
When to hold it.
Yeah, so it's a
That is
human
also
experience. So it's
very-
great that you're an athlete and you understand you've been in a race, but you also have to understand that they're experiencing this and they may not be in the same mindset as you.
Exactly.
I think one of the biggest things, which Mary, you had mentioned in the Instagram live that you guys did after the race, and really what you said about your husband is you got to have people that are going to let you suffer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And suffering is unconditional love, right? Unconditional love allows for suffering, because if it didn't, then there would be no suffering on this earth.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of suffering on this earth because we have free will, and we're here to take the opportunities to get to where we need to go.
Yeah.
And part of that is suffering, because we need the suffering, we need the contrast to see what we don't want in our lives.
Yeah.
To be able to practice shifting in a moment and not focusing on the things that are expanding that don't feel good, but seeing that there's another way.
Yeah.
So suffering is such an important process in this human experience. And so if you've got somebody that's not going to let you suffer, that's going to be such a limiter in your ability to execute.
And I don't think you know if you have that or not until you do it. I really
Oh,
don't.
no, absolutely.
Because I'm like, oh, Bruce has seen me, like, he's seen me at other ultra, like,
Right.
where he wasn't a crew, he just sat on the
Right.
sidelines and watched, so he'll get it.
It'll be fine.
Right.
But when it's, you've got to follow behind me in a car for 24 hours,
Yeah.
it's a different type.
Yeah,
of
they
suffering.
take on your
Yeah, you can't not.
what you're doing. Like, they're in the
Yeah,
race too.
they're
Now
in
it's
it.
like our race.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so knowing what to do with that, and BJ and I have experienced just in intensities in our life, like, I've let you suffer and you've let me suffer, like, suffer where you're just like, oh my God, I can take all of this away from him, like, suffering to the point where you're like, oh my God, this is the hardest thing I ever did, was to do nothing.
Yeah. And I think we were talking about this earlier because, some people might not be able to relate to this type of endurance event and having a crew and what that all means and what the suffering really looks like. And that's not important, but, like, think about a parent and a child, or your brother or sister, and you see them taking a path. Let me just give you an example. Say I have a friend who's in a relationship, and I know some things about the relationship because of things that they've told me and things that other people have observed. And you know that if I tell this person these one or two things, like, this is really going to save them so much heartache. And I love this person. And I mean, whether this is your friend or your child, your teenager that you're watching go through, a first relationship, if I just tell them these one or two things, like, it's going to save them all of this heartache. But if I do that, I'm taking away that opportunity for them to have the learning experience and to grow as a human being. And that's when you take a step back and you look at it from that perspective, why would you want to do that?
It's really violating to
very
step
violating.
in And it's like, who's it for? We think it's
Yeah.
for the other person, but it's actually
not.
for us.
It's to make yourself feel better.
Yes.
Oh, well, I have this knowledge. It would make me feel so much better to share it. But in reality, like when I look at my own life and the choices that I've made and the things that other people might consider mistakes, I have no regrets because the things that were the hardest for me to go through were also the most valuable life experiences.
Yep. I mean, that just sums it. It's such a, and it's a really, as much as you feel like, oh my God, I wish I can't do anything. Like, as much as you feel like you have the power to change it, the most powerful thing you can do is not try and change it.
Yeah.
Is not try and change it. Like when BJ, like when you were going down like the deep, dark hole.
Yeah, you gave me a gift, a big gift.
Oof.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, and he would come home from work and I could just feel his like gooey, dark energy walking into the house. And I was like, whew, okay, my work now begins.
Yeah.
Like my work to allow him to be exactly where he is and love him exactly where he is and know that he's perfect.
Yeah.
Because these actions that he's taking and like popping, what were you popping?
Like, probably Vicodin or
and like
Oxycontin and
walking
drinking
around with
wine
a bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And I was like,
awesome.
and I do remember just praying and being like, keep him safe.
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
would be cool if you could just like keep him safe so he doesn't like accidentally OD, because it's not going to take him much
But
to
that's
OD.
my reference point. Like I have that experience now. That's like
That's the
whoa.
best-
Like
yeah.
I,
that was
I
one of
know
the-
I can see that, and I know that's not obviously where I want to be. But I can see how far I've come. But I can also see that I need to let other people
Have that experience.
have that experience too. Even though I have the answer, like I can tell you, I can up-level you 3 levels right now by telling you this. But
Yep.
But it's not going to work if they're not
not
ready
gonna-
for
no.
it.
yeah, they're not going to
Yeah.
receive it
It's
well,
not
and it's
gonna
not going to
help
become
anybody.
them. Like I've
Yeah.
in that experience, like it's totally turned, and now it's part of me. Like the positive side is now ingrained in
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I was able to have that suffering.
It was super
Yeah.
tough, but
Yeah, it's
that
always
was like,
tough.
it was like, I just needed to attend to the work that I needed to do. And what I needed to do is just be okay with the fact that he was suffering, and that created suffering within me. So all I had to
Yeah.
do was just attend to my own suffering.
Be okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And trust.
Yeah.
And trust it was going to be okay. It was going to be okay if he kept going and we got divorced. It was all going to be okay.
Yeah.
It was all going to be okay in the end.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a huge piece, is the allowing somebody to suffer. How did you pick your crew, Mary?
Well, it was, I mean, honestly, I feel like my crew picked themselves. I mean, it was
You
like,
didn't have a say.
no, I did have a say, but it was like, it kind of seemed like a no-brainer to me. So
So it was like flow again.
it was like flow. So obviously I picked Heidi because she's my best friend, but I also know, like for me in Australia, and I had the same crew in Hawaii with one change, and that is Marcia got married the week before Hawaii, and so she was not able to go, and so I invited Josie, and that was such a perfect fit for our crew. But Heidi just has a way of, I mean, she's from Boston, so there's like no bullshit tolerated. You know, it's like,
it's
Get it?
it's a gift.
Yeah.
It's
a masshole.
gift.
it is like, yeah, a masshole. Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, like she doesn't give a fuck. So it's like, oh, you feel bad? Too bad. And she has this phrase. Actually, I think it's her husband's phrase, but it's like, do you want to do it or should I?
Bruce kicking me out of bed, which now turns into kicking you out of bed.
No, the
Going you
Yeah,
wanted
yeah, yeah.
to be a rock star.
but you have to like really emphasize the you wanted to be a rock star. So it's just like, you know, if I'm like really like having that moment where I'm feeling sorry for myself, she's just like, you wanted to be a rock star. And it's like, oh yeah, I chose this.
You chose all of
Right.
this.
Yeah.
So show up.
So yeah, like, and then you just start laughing. So it was like, that was kind of a no-brainer. And then Chris has also crewed. He crewed for Rob Gray prior to Australia. So he had done both Florida and Hawaii. And he also sold me my bike. And so he knew my bike inside and out. And having a bike mechanic on your crew I highly
Priceless.
recommend it. It is priceless. We helped out not only in Australia and Hawaii, but also when I crewed in Canada, we had a bike mechanic on crew, and we helped out so many other athletes. I mean, you have no idea like how many mechanical things you run into over 300 miles. And I mean, really, Marcia in Australia and Josie in Hawaii were extras, but very valuable. And I invited Josie because she's expressed interest in Ultraman. And so I thought this is a great way, just like me going to Canada, this is a great way for me to give back to her so that she can see and know, okay, when I'm ready to make this leap in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or whenever she decides to do it, like I know what's coming. And her energy, like we've said, I mean, you just can't match Josie's energy.
Yeah. That's awesome. So the bike mechanic, that seems like a pretty key thing. So if somebody is like, they're thinking that they want to race one of these, or like, how would they start getting that experience as a crew?
You can volunteer. So I know Florida, and I would assume Canada as well, has links on their website where you can contact the race organizers if you're interested in volunteering. And you can volunteer with the race directors, but you can also volunteer as crew. So there's a lot of international athletes that are coming from South America and Europe and India, and if they don't want to pay, it's very expensive. Ultraman is an expensive sport. And as an athlete, it's part of the culture that you pay for everything. Everything. So you pay flights, hotel, car rental, but you also pay for baggage fees and food and everything else in between. And your crew is, the gift that they're giving you is priceless. So the money that I'm spending on those few things is like, not a big deal at all. But I can imagine coming from Europe or Asia somewhere, like the flight alone is a couple $1,000s. And then when you're adding in 2 to 3 crew members, like it gets very expensive. And a lot of them look for volunteer crews. And that's a great way to, dip your toe in the water.
That's so cool. I never knew that.
Yeah.
It would be
that
something
might
yogi
be fun.
triathletes out there.
Yeah.
I'll
the
support
first-
you.
Because I know
Hawaii does it too,
you've
don't
been eyeing Ultraman
Yeah,
as well.
just focus.
Yes, but you got to stay
Yeah.
fucking focused right now.
SFF.
That's the new instead of
SFF.
saying I love you, we just
I'm a
say
fan of
stay
SFF.
fucking focused.
Yeah.
Just stay focused.
Just stay fucking focused.
Yeah. And I didn't, in the crew, I didn't mention that Dan crewed, and really that was more like if he was not married to me, he wouldn't have been a crew member, and that's terrible to say, but he really wanted to be there in Australia and Hawaii, and I didn't want to take that experience away from him. And he was a valuable crew member in both situations, but he can handle my suffering. He doesn't know exactly how to motivate me. So that gets a little bit tricky on day 3.
So you need that key person with the key phrase, like you wanted to be a rock star.
What does your athlete, what makes them laugh? What distracts them?
Right.
Yeah.
What can you, or does nothing. The first time I ever crewed for Dave, he did not want to talk. You could run with him. He didn't want you to, but you could, to give him water, but you did not speak because he didn't want to talk.
And that's okay too.
And that's
Yeah.
And you got to be
perfectly fine.
okay
That's
with
what he needed.
silence.
And you have, you have to be okay with
Which I'm
that.
fine
That's
with.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. That's awesome. Any other questions about that? All right, cool. Thank you, you guys. That was
Thanks,
really
guys.
that was really cool extra.